This video is a testimony from an insider into the global banking industry. Paul Zweig, he was a banker in London trading government bonds and noticed odd behaviors of the central banks. He describes how the United Nations and its agencies, the World Bank and IMF, cripple countries with debt and leverage that debt over them to control them. He has had sit-down meetings with Janet Yellen, in which he will discuss in this video. Enjoy.
And then when I saw how they were conducting business in the recession in 2008, where they clearly wiped out the economies of the southern European countries, for example, it became clear to me that they probably are part of some kind of a scheme going on here, because you can't be that stupid, right? And every time it was the same scenario. The stock market would collapse, the house prices would collapse, the unemployment would skyrocket, and every single time then IMF would lend the country as much money as they could. They would pile on as much debt as possible. And once they had so much debt that there was no way they could pay it back, then they would start buying up their assets. The Greek islands, their airports, their harbors. I think it's almost in practice working like a crime syndicate. It is basically a crime syndicate that is looting country after country and pretty much using the same recipe every single time. Preying on the weakest countries, any country that is on their knees, that's what they go for. And when they are on their knees, they find 1, 2, 10 wealthy families who agree to help them loot their country, and they pile on a massive debt, take all the real assets in the country as security, and once the country can't pay its debt, because they ensure they can't pay the debt, because they fire all the workers, they minimize the monetary base, and then they get all the real assets and a military base thrown in the process normally, or a harbor or something. I had to look up exactly how it is they're interconnected, but it is basically the Bank of International Settlement, the Federal Reserve, and above all, it's the International Monetary Fund that are conducting the business of lending money to countries that are in economic trouble. And the recipe seems to be the same every single time. They will lend them money on very strict conditions, and then the country will say yes to this money because they have a debt. They have to pay, and they can't find their money anywhere in a short term. So, and the conditions are so hard that obviously the assets of the country ends up on the lenders' books. America, they never borrow in foreign currency. That's why they say a dollar is a dollar. They borrow money in dollars because it's the world reserve currency. They don't have to. So all these things that people say that, oh yeah, America, they have such a huge debt that they can't pay it back. Well, the thing is, they can just print more money because the debt is in dollars, and they decide how many dollars they want to print, so they could just inflate the monetary base anytime they wanted. But they are not so kind to other nations. Other nations are not allowed to borrow in their own currency. They have to borrow in foreign currency. And then, of course, one of the arguments is that they're saying to them, well, it's good for you to devalue your currency, because then you, in theory, it will be easy for them to compete on the international market, and they will be able to export more. But the thing is that you only have so many resources, and if all of a sudden you agree to devalue, then you will get less money in foreign currency. Once the country can't pay back its debt, then the lenders, the IMF, and will come in and tell them they have to auction off their assets to pay back the debt. And then, funny enough, the same multinational corporations, they come in and buy up the country's assets for next to nothing. And it's the same recipe in every single country. Well, the thing is, the investment banking world is quite chummy, and you go out, you drink a lot, you eat a lot, you party a lot, and everybody are so happy and best friends. But really to begin asking questions about how business is conducted and the rationale for conducting business that loots country after country, that is frowned upon. As in, you may not find that job, no matter how good you are. I learned that the hard way. So I was at a dinner with Janet Yellen in the Lanesborough Hotel back in 2011, and I was talking to her about this fact. How come you do that every single time? The same thing. You know, high interest rates, cut public sector, country can't pay back its debt, or then you auction off all the assets on a very low price. Why are you always doing it the same way? It always, I mean, there's not a single time where the country you've been helping have ended up better off after the IMF loans. I mean, so it seems to be some kind of a recipe for robbing them blind, and she did not like that. A few weeks later, I was called into an office. I was fired, and that was a huge surprise to me. I probably at the time just thought they were just stupid and not very good at what they were doing. I realized, oh my goodness, they're doing it on purpose. They really are a mafia. They really are a crime syndicate. They really are, you know, out to destroy people's lives, livelihoods, and entire countries' wealth, and rob it blindly. That is what they're doing. And that was a huge shock. And a few years later, at the time I was not actually aware how money was created. I think not exactly, at least. And when I learned that, I realized, my goodness, that's how they're also stealing money from every single citizen of the world. When money is created as debt in the bank decides not only who becomes rich and poor. The guy they lent $1 billion to buy real estate from, or start a business, he becomes a billionaire, he becomes very wealthy. The other guy whom they turn down for whatever reason, he doesn't make any money. So the bank, it's very easy to see that the banks decide who becomes wealthy and who doesn't. But actually, it's worse than that, because it is the banks that are producing the majority of a nation's monetary base. So that means that in the countries where they increase the monetary base and creates a lot of debt, a lot of loans, those countries do very, very well. And other countries, like the third world countries, coincidentally, where they do not create a lot of debt and not create a huge monetary base, they can hardly scrape by. And that's on purpose. So the banks decide not only who individually becomes rich and poor, but also which countries becomes. And they also decide when the global economy should have a boom and when it should be a recession. They decide it all. Inherently in all nations, people have ingenuity and creativity and various levels of hard workmanship. And according to that formula, how hard your population is working and how the amount of natural resources and access to transport and so on, you have a certain potential output. And if the monetary base is huge, or at least large enough to sustain economic development, your country will prosper. That is just a natural law. However, no matter how clever a population you have, how well educated a population you have, how willing they are to work hard, and even with national resources, if you don't have a monetary base of a certain size, you will never be able to create wealth in your country. We see that in a lot of Eastern European countries and third world countries, well-educated people, willing to work hard, massive natural resources, yet, whoa, oh my God, it's a miracle. They're always poor. How come? Hey. And I think we have a golden opportunity now for all people to understand it, because we have had this event, which is also a monetary event, happening so short after the 2008 crisis, where people started to wonder, how can it be that we have no money for old people or unemployed people, but we could spend 1,500 billion on the banks? And while they were bailing out the banks from 2008 onwards, the poor people, particularly in Southern Europe, were really suffering. Why didn't we bail out the people? Why did we bail out the banks? And people were starting, that is weird. So you saw a time where you nationalize the bailout of the banks, and then you kind of privatize the bailout of the people. They could sort it out themselves. And so that is in the back of people's minds, and Danish people and everybody in the world now, they have a chance to understand money creation, that where does this money come from? How can they just create billions and billions and billions and trillions of new money? Where does it come from? So we have a chance now for people to understand that actually that is your money, and your family's money, and your friends' money, and your neighbor's money. And they could have written you a check, just digitally typed in a 1 and 5 zeros, and given it to a family of 4. Mom, dad, and 2 kids. Well, here you go. Here's 100,000 euro, tax-free, for you to spend as you like. But they didn't do it that way, did they? They took they took your 100,000 euro and spent it on sending home all the public sector workers, and the same did a lot of private companies, and companies were closed down, and then they got handouts from the government, because they said that's unfair to me, they're sending home the public sector workers with full pay, what about us? So they didn't get paid more than a fraction of what the public sector workers got paid. So small business owners, not so much, because they realize that all they're getting is they are being told, oh, you don't have to pay your VAT until 6 months later, you can borrow some money, and then they get a small handout. So they're being totally sacrificed and crucified here, I think. The solution to the problem would be if more people started to really try to understand what's going on, and ask questions.
Corporation case R period till the 385 till the 460 till the 312:U period S period. I'm filing on September 14th, 2021, a contract in place that deals with copyrights on the Title IV flag, sedition, treason, and traitors.
If true, he should be fired and tried for treason immediately, giving America's enemies a heads up before an attack. Well, that's the worst possible offense that a member of our military could ever commit.
You have here Mark Milley, not once but twice, before the election and after, contacts the head of the communist military in China, our #1 enemy. Joint Chiefs of Staff knows every step of it. He's going to tell the enemy? If that's true, this SOB needs to be out of there as fast as possible, without a debate. What else does he do? He basically, according to this article, if it's true, he tells his subordinate officers basically to take an oath of loyalty to him. To him. What else does he do? He conspires with the head of the CIA, who's worried about a right-wing coup. The head of the Joint Chiefs is collaborating with the head of the opposition party, Pelosi and Schumer. So he's collaborated, according to this story, with the communist Chinese military, with the head of the Democrats in the House, with the head of the Democrats in the Senate. He's got subordinate generals and others who he, according to this story, gets allegiances from them.
On August 12th, 1999, the Title IV flag, sections 1, 2, and 3 were filed for copyrights at the Post Office and the United Nations Postal Administration, and that is articulated in the caption, as well as in paragraph 0. The copyrights were also filed at the U.S. Post Office on July 18th, 2000, in corporation claim number R period tilde 294 tilde 568 tilde 221 U period S period. Sedition, treason, and traitors. In 1999, the charter bankruptcy, the Constitution of the United States, ended. In ending, the top brass of the U.S. military has known this for years. Upon knowing this, they kicked off a new world order in the fake presidential election of 2000, where they perpetrated and used the Florida Chads to trick the American soldiers, trick the American people, and to kick off a new world order to steal the citizens' rights of the world, to demoralize the spirit of who we are as citizens of the former America, as well as the citizens of the world. In that betrayal, they tried to downplay the legitimacy of my position as Postmaster-General, and doing so created a treasonous act of trickery through sedition to hide the fact that the United States government ceased to exist in 1999. When the United States government ceased to exist in 1999, there were some consequences of that charter ending. Number one, there was to be no constitutional president. For the charter to elect a president ended in 1999. Thus, the 2000 Florida Chads election was the setup to not follow any guidelines to elect a president. Number two, that there was no, because the Constitution ended, there was no Congress, because Congress didn't reauthorize in 1999 when the Constitution ended. So the Senate and the House of Representatives ended in the former United States. And I kicked off the largest court-martialing in 2004, and in that, I syntaxed and disqualified the Uniform Code of Military Justice, as well as Title X, and rewrote that in the court-martialing trials. Because of the sedition and treason by these traitors, the Title IV flag, which I have the copyrights to, will not be used by these traitors on the military postal bases, the military postal forts, the postal stations, as well as the U.S. Pentagon. The Title IV flag no longer sponsors these traitors which are on this vessel contract. The traitors' names are identified in all capital letters. The volition behind the capital letters is because they are identified as a vessel, because the traitors on this contract do not have claims of the life, because the birth certificate system ended in 1999. Thus, without a claim of the life, these vessels don't have authorization to engage in any thinking for the statement of a claim, because only facts can identify for the statement of a claim. Therefore, these vessels are identified in capital letters as traitors, and the traitors are to be captured and brought to me for trial. The trial is a treason charges for sedition, and because of the performances by the vessels, they don't have the capacity to think to defend themselves, because they got a birth certificate. That's tomfoolery. It ended in 1999. So if you run into these vessels on the postal military bases and forts and lands, as well as the postal stations in the Pentagon, the stabilization force has authorization to capture these vessels and bring these vessels to me, so that there can be a public trial, or they can be brought to trial before the public, so the public can see their sedition and their treason. And this is a massive cover-up for many, many years. In 2008, I was conducting the largest court-martialing in the history of planet Earth, and I had personal contact on a day-to-day level with the Secretary of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Michael-Glenn Mullen, who is court-martialed as well. And they know exactly what's going on in the court-martialing. They know that there is no United States. They have been playing games against the American soldiers and the American people, as well as the citizens of the world, for many years. And it's time for this paradigm to end. as the soldiers now become sovereign claimants with claims of the life within the paradigm of the U.S. military, and they follow the correct mechanics of how to claim their sovereignty, they're going to become knowledgeable. Soldiers are becoming knowledgeable of the facts and of the truth. And the truth shall always set you free. See, numbers don't lie, but liars never figure. So all of you generals that have been hiding the truth, and all you press out here, the public press, who have been hiding my legitimacy as Postmaster General, and have been tricking the fake presidents, and if you ever take witness, everyone out here, why do presidents always hire crappy people? Because it's a ruse to steal your rights. It's a ruse to give you no contract rights. And so we've got to come out of the fakeness of who we are. And especially the U.S. military needs to stop playing in their Ken and Barbie doll Santa Claus game. Because that doesn't exist. So come out of that Ken and Barbie Santa Claus condition, and let's step into the factual conditions, and let's capture these vessels. The vessel cargo traders on this contract, each and every one of them should be captured and brought, for they are in violation of November 13th, 2020 filing, when they were supposed to secure our borders, and they were given commands, and they have not followed their commands. And now as we watch the travesty of what's happening in Afghanistan, where no thinking is being taken place, no authorization and no accountability is being dealt out. The accountability starts with me. I am the Commander-in-Chief, and I am the Postmaster General. And the military soldiers, you are learning about this, and you are coming to grips with it, and you are going to make the difference here. You're going to have to. Look at our borders. What do you think's going on? Who's coming across? Do you know how much trouble this is going to cause for your families, your loved ones, and the citizens of the former United States? These are dangerous games that are being played by very few people. So let's round them up for their treasonous acts. Let's bring them to trial so their families can be so proud of them for their treasonous ways against them and the people of this country. And then now, once that happens, we can start to forgive ourselves, and we can start to heal and secure our borders to stop this migration of tomfoolery that's coming across, because those people are only doing what they've been told. They've been told to come here by very foolish people who are running around acting like they're in charge. This is not correct. They're not in charge. They're not even in charge of themselves. Take a look at them. They have no accountability. They have no honor of the citizens of this country. They leave our citizens offshore. They strand them. Shame on them. And it's going to end. As the American soldiers and the American citizens and the American press finally pull their heads out of their butts and figure it out that you've been lied to since 1999, and figure out that these fake presidents that have been acting like they've actually done something, as we see the winding down of all the poor choices that have been made since the year 2000, when they've had these fake presidents in place. And as we see the press scratching their heads, wondering, how can this be? The Constitution says this, the Constitution says that. I'm sorry. Hannity, Levine, Jones, all of you actors out there that are maneuvering thinking into the paradigm of society, you can't figure this out? You can't figure it out? You've been told. And yet, you do the same thing every night, every day, every day, every day. Come on, guys. You guys are smart. Get your claims of the life so you can establish some facts. And then let's go in together and let's forgive those who need to be forgiven. And let's hold the accountability of those who need to be held accountable. I'm Russell-J. Gould, Postmaster-General and Commander-in-Chief.